Hey guys, Andrew Davidson here, and welcome back to another As Per My Ability video. Thank you for checking out our video, and thank you for being with us today. It's great to see you guys again. How are you? How are you all doing? I woke up this morning thinking about Charles Darwin. Yeah, I know that's a really weird thing for me to lead into this video, but I was thinking about Charles Darwin. Darwin had this idea of survival of the fittest. Basically, it meant that if you were more fit than anyone else, you will survive longer. Whoever has more wherewithal, whoever has more mental and physical fortitude will survive. They create hierarchies of survival, and survival goes to the fittest. I started to think about survival just in general. Not necessarily survival of the fittest, because normally when people are placed in a situation where survival is key, they typically band together, and survival of the fittest doesn't necessarily play into the situation. We have many books and TV shows and movies out there that deal with people having to survive against the elements or against the odds or what have you, and it doesn't really promulgate the idea of survival of the fittest. Instead, it's more of the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, for lack of a better phrase. So I began thinking about games, survival games, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So stick with me, and we're going to go down my top 5 survival board games. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for sticking with me. As I said at the top of the video, this is a video about my top 5 survival board games. Now let me delineate a few things before I get into my top 5. Try to be really brief. First of all, numero uno. These are games that I own. So I know there's lots of survival games out there, but these are ones that I own and that I've played. Numero dos. These games all revolve around cooperation. They are all cooperative, so I won't be announcing what type of game each game is on the list. They are all cooperative games, and they all deal with not dying. You all have to survive. So basically, an end game condition is someone dies, which means you need to help everybody out. You need to split up your food. You need to give extra rations to the person who's bleeding out. So I specifically looked at games that I've played, that I own, and games that will basically, if someone dies in the game, that is the end condition. That is a way to lose the game. So having said all of that, let's move into my top 5 list. Number 5 on my list is simply a card game. It's a card game. Obviously, it's a survival game where a bunch of players are all stuck on an island. It's kind of like Lost, I suppose, but without all the weirdness. Without any of the weirdness. Man, that show was weird. Number 5 on my list is a party/filler/card game called Ravine. And like I said, it's just a little simple card game. In Ravine, you are all stuck on an island. You are all trying to survive X amount of days and nights without everyone being killed off. You will be attacked by animals. You will suffer from some terrible weather effects. There's diseases and things like that. Ravine is incredibly light, incredibly simple, and incredibly quick to play. I think it plays in about 20 minutes. And just like an ex-girlfriend, it is number 5 on my list because while it might be fun to dabble around with a little bit, you really are not going to have this thing become a permanent fixture in your life. So Ravine is number 5 on my list. Number 4 on my list is a survival horror game, although you could put horror in quotation marks. But number 4 is The Shining by Prospero Hall. Now, The Shining is based on The Shining, the movie by Stanley Kubrick, which is loosely based on The Shining by Stephen King. In The Shining, the movie, the premise is that a family moves to the Overlook Hotel, giant hotel. It's actually located in Colorado, and it's a summer joint, and so it's not open during the winter. So they hire the family to be a caretaker during the winter months when the snow falls, and they're basically trapped in this Overlook Hotel. There's no way in and no way out, and the lead character, played by Jack Nicholson, goes a little nuts, and I will leave it at that. Danny's not here, Mrs. Torrance. In The Shining, you are taking on players that are living in the Overlook Hotel. You are playing together. You are trying not to go mad, because if you go mad, you start attacking each other. And yes, the end condition for this game is someone dies. It is incredibly easy for someone to die in The Shining. You start with 3 hit points. I have had games of The Shining go like 2 rounds, and it's like, we're done. We lost already. Let's just set up and play again, because we barely even got started. Yeah, it's easy for someone to die, and the moment someone dies, the game is over. However, The Shining is fun. It is very simplistic. It's by Prospero Hall, so it's very accessible. You can pick it up at Target. It's easy to learn, easy to play, easy to teach. And games generally don't take that long. They say 60 minutes on the box, but I would challenge that. So number 4 for my survival board games, number 4 is The Shining. Number 3 on my list is what I refer to as Walking Dead in a board game. Now, I know Walking Dead has its own brand and its own board games with the Walking Dead title on it. This is not Walking Dead, but it is Walking Dead in a board game. It's called Dead of Winter. It's an incredibly popular game. If you do play games, you've probably heard of this game. You've probably seen this game. You've probably played this game. You've probably watched Will Wheaton play it on his tabletop show, RIP. And yeah, Dead of Winter. It is Walking Dead the board game without the licensing to actually say this is Walking Dead the board game. In Dead of Winter, you are all playing survivors in a zombie apocalypse in winter. So you're in the middle of kind of nowhere during a winter storm, zombie apocalypse. You have a headquarters where you're trying to feed people. You go out and you scavenge to try to find food, medicine, collect different resources in order to help your people or to win the game. There are quite a few different objectives, so the game is not really static. You can set up different games where this objective requires you to focus more on this, and this objective is a harder one, so it requires you to focus on this and this. Dead of Winter does come as there is a Traitor Among Us game. I never play it with a traitor. I always play it fully, like 100% cooperative. We just play on the harder level. So that's what I recommend. If you pick up my number 3, Dead of Winter, play cooperative, but just up the difficulty. So yeah, that's my number 3, Dead of Winter. My number 2 survival horror game. So we're getting into the top 2 where I could probably interchange these, but as of right now, I like the way that I have them set up. So I'm leaving this at number 2. Number 2 is a game by Ignacy Cevicek, published by Portal Games. It is a game that I have only won once, and I've attempted it at least 20 times. And there's so many different scenarios, and there's so much in this game that I have not touched because I just can barely get past the opening scenario that they have you set up. It is called Robinson Crusoe. In Robinson Crusoe, you are all trying to survive, like Robinson Crusoe, the novel. You're trying to survive on an island. So you're collecting food, trying not to get attacked by wild animals, like build a shelter to withstand some of the storms, because like monsoons will come in and they'll get all your wood will get wet, and then you can't burn wood, so then you freeze to death at night. This is an incredibly complex game. Now I need to take a time out here because I talked about Ravine at number 5. Ravine has the same theme, being stuck on an island and trying to collect resources or gather things to help each other out. But I need to make a distinction to everyone right now, if I may. Ravine is a filler 20-minute party game that they tried to give some kind of a serious theme. Robinson Crusoe is an incredibly in-depth game. I don't know who you are right now watching me, but if you're not an extreme gamer, there is a huge, and I say that with a capital H-U-G-E, a huge learning curve. Robinson Crusoe is, you're going to have to sit down and you're going to have to read a huge book, figure out a lot of finicky rules. How does the weather work, and how do we upgrade our shelter? And your shelter has 3 different aspects to it. There's like the walls, there's the ceiling or the overcovering, then there's animal attacks, and then how do we build this? Or we can also explore. There's so many. They tried to make this be very like a simulator, and it does a fairly good job in a tabletop version of simulating starving to death on an island, or freezing to death, or being eaten by a bear, or just all the awesome fun ways to die on an island with your friends. You know, that's actually what they should have called it. They should have called it just Fun Ways to Die on an Island with Your Friends. No, I should have stuck with Robinson Crusoe. I love Robinson Crusoe. As I said, there's a lot of content that I have not gotten to. I have the expansion over here somewhere. I also bought some upgraded components. I just love this game. It's number 2 for a reason, but it's going to take you some time to learn, and it does take a long while to play. If you want a thematic survival experience, Robinson Crusoe, my number 2. In the mid-'80s, lasting all the way through the '90s, there was a civil war in Sarajevo, Bosnia. In this civil war, there were tanks in the streets, there were militant groups in the streets. Civilians were basically hunkered down in their houses, their homes, their apartments. And so the game number 1 on my list, which I'm really excited about, I really enjoy playing it a lot, takes on the thematic value of the Sarajevo Civil War, although it's not a representation of that. It's just what was, the designers were influenced by the Sarajevo Civil War, and it is called This War of Mine. Full disclosure, This War of Mine is actually an app game, started as a game on your phone. I have not played the app version of all. I have no clue how it plays or what's all involved in it. I have, however, played the snot out of this thing. I actually have, I've bought some more scenarios and some more expansions for This War of Mine. In This War of Mine, you are playing survivors during a civil war in a unknown city, and you're trying to survive in a home, this dilapidated home with there's holes in the roof, and some of the wall has been shot out from some tank or some mortar fire and things, and you're just basically hunkering down, trying to survive. You're basically Anne Frank in this game, and it's incredibly thematic. It's fully cooperative. It's also incredibly dark. So I need to put that out there because I do consider this a family show, and I try to talk about games that would be good for families. This is not good for a family. That was easy. But no, seriously, This War of Mine has a lot of adult themes in it, such as suicide, depression, drug and alcohol abuse. There's a lot of just kind of heavy things in here. When people can go mad, it's got a narrative element to it, which, by the way, there's an app for. Just use the app for the narrative stuff. It's so much better than flipping through a book. Anyways, I digress. This War of Mine is definitely for adults, and definitely not for people that would be triggered by drug abuse or alcoholism, dying from those things, or dying from suicide, self-inflicted, or people hurting other people. It's a pretty heavy thematic game. On the plus side, it's my number 1. I think it's a great game. It is incredibly fun. It's number 1 for a reason. So that is everything that I have. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Those are my top 5 favorite survival games, at least that I own, that I can talk about, and games where you have to survive. You cannot just die and continue on or respawn. That is where I'm going to leave us for today. Once again, my name is Andrew Davidson. You have been watching As Per My Ability, and I will see each and every one of you at the next video.